Good evening. Friend and fellow researcher Ryan Tremblay has shared his Dogman encounter with me. Now, we don't do a lot of encounters on his channel. We do some. I feel there are so many other channels that do such a great job with them, and we talk mostly about theory, but every once in a while somebody shares something with me, and they want their story to be shared, and I'm happy to do it. So Ryan was nice enough to type it all up for me. It's pretty well written, and I'm going to read to you guys what he wrote me here, and I think you'll find it very fascinating. As promised, here's my Dogman encounter as I remember it. Mind you, I think I might have blocked out certain details, but it's all here more or less as much as detail as my brain would allow me to put forward. It happened in Arizona. I never gave too much thought about encountering a Dogman, as I never really felt that they lived in a region such as this. I have agreed to take care of a friend's house a while back while he and his wife were out of town. In the back there was a large, spacious backyard that flowed directly into the tree line. Plenty of Palo Verdes, Joshua trees, and mesquites lined the property's border. A few weeks beforehand, a neighbor had come over late at night and asked him if he had heard anything strange. Apparently, there's a small breed of dog that had been taken from their yard during the night. We more or less dismissed this as coyotes or bobcats, as there are an abundance of both in the area. Jump forward to the night that it happened. Things felt off, for the lack of a better term. Coyotes were yelping and barking out more than usual. And that's saying a lot. In an area at night, it's like a coyote choir. But this was different. This seemed anxious, almost restless. Before I bombard you with too much detail, I should note that there was no full moon, nothing that would attribute to a werewolf kind of night in any way. So I arrived at a friend's house around 10:30 or 11 at night to do my more nightly check before hitting the sack. What struck me is the eerie feel this property had taken. Aside from the coyotes, there was nothing making a sound. No crickets, no rabbits scampering about in the yard. During the check at his house, I heard a strange noise coming from the property line. I can best describe this as a deep, loud groan of a man mixed with the whine of a canine. Curious as I am, I followed the sound to the border of the property. At first, all I could see was a dark black shape of a silhouette. The first thought that crossed my mind was someone was rummaging around, but as the security lights kicked on, the glow of the lights had caught this thing's eyes. There was a very distinct amber glow in the eyeshine. I might have dismissed this as it had not blinked once or twice or the third time. By this time, a noxious odor bombarded me, something I can only describe as old garbage mixed with fecal matter. Out of fright, I called out to see if anyone would respond. But rather than any human speech, I received a deep growl in response. Moments after, I heard a snapping sound, like teeth gnashing together. I literally felt frozen in fear at this point. My mind was telling me to get out of there, yet my body refused to budge. Even catching my breath seemed impossible. Stiffening up where I stood, I could hear branches snap. I'm not sure if these were residual branches from the trees on the ground, or if this thing was snapping them from the various trees as it moved about. Catching sight of the eyeshine, a cold chill came over me. This thing was staring back. Clearly it knew I was there, and that it had been seen. Another growl was given off, this one deeper, more aggressive sounding. And still I could not move. Thanks to the light, I was able to catch sight of this thing lurking in a group of Joshua trees. Peering at me through the branches, it was staring directly at me. It was a moment that was frozen in time. I didn't move, nor did the creature. It simply stood there staring at me. I'm guessing now that it was simply gauging whether or not I was a threat, or worse, possible prey. When this thing stood up, I could see the massive upper body. Not Hulk-like, but very much like a well-sculpted athlete. Long arms, ending in human-like hands, which gripped branches of the nearby tree. I noticed long tufts of fur erupting upwards out of its ears. If Facial-wise, I can only liken the thing to more of a hyena appearance. Its snout was not as long as a German Shepherd, but not as short as a pug or a bulldog. I wish I could offer more details on the coloration of its fur. However, it was night, and with the distance between us, I couldn't see many details. There was a knee-popping sound that was present, something I was not aware of till after the event. As we were having the staring contest, its lips pulled upwards, exposing its teeth. There was a type of sneer that formed on its face. Maybe as a display to me to show it had weapons. This dragged on for what felt like eternity. Too scared to flinch, this thing and I simply stared back at each other until I dared take a step. At this moment is where it dropped to all fours and charged at me for a few short feet. Too afraid to remain there, I finally bolted for the house. I was not about to contend with this thing on its terms. I quickly fled into my friend's house, locked the doors behind me, switched on every light in the house, and simply waited. Waited until I heard nothing from the back. I'm guessing that eventually this thing had lost its curiosity for me that it originally had. Through the window I could hear the branches breaking again, but growing more and more faint. If I had to estimate the distance, I'd say about 15 feet max was between this thing and I. Terrifying to realize that this would creep up so close without me knowing. Needless to say, afterwards, things were difficult. I was overcome with fear. Going anywhere at night was a chore, a task that I simply had no interest in doing. I suffered from a high amount of panic and anxiety after even taking out the trash. Nightmares came for a while, flashes of this thing's face over and over. So much time later, I'm still a bit reluctant to talk about these things. So that's what Ryan wrote me. Very fascinating. 15 feet is incredibly close. That's like the distance in most living rooms from your TV from your couch. That's, for human steps, that's 2 or 3 steps with an outreached arm, and you're at 15 feet. That's incredible to be that close to this thing. I think it's fascinating that he described the snout as being shorter and not necessarily like a very long, kind of a wolf snout. He likened it to like a hyena. And a number of people do report that. He didn't say in this description that he sent me about its legs, but the way he mentioned it came down to all fours. And from talking to him otherwise, he said that it was all canine, and it looked like an upright walking dog, but with a lot broader shoulders. The ear tufts is very interesting. I've talked to a number of people who report that, and it says it really stands out to them. If you've ever seen like a real wild wolf or some dog species, they have these really long ear tufts. And fascinatingly, a lot of cats have this too, like bobcats and lynx and mountain lions have these little ear tufts that come up. I'm not sure what their feature is for, or maybe it helps them in hearing or sensing air pressure or something like that. But this is certainly terrifying. One thing to be over at a friend's house is, even if you've been at a friend's house quite a bit, it's not your house. You don't know where like the kitchen knives are or guns are or a back door or every inch of the place. You probably don't know every single inch of the yard and property, what's on the other side. It's one thing if it's in your home and you feel like it's your home and you know where to go and what to do and where all the light switches are and how to encounter everything and where the car is and all the little details that you maybe take for granted when you're at somebody else's house. And the fact that you're all alone, you might not know the neighbors, you might not know the lay of the land. It's truly terrifying to me. And I feel for Ryan. A lot of people report it haunting them for years. The lady I spoke to a while back who saw a Dogman in Wyoming, it haunted her for a long time. In fact, she didn't even know what to call it until years later she found people having Dogman sightings or werewolf encounters online. So just wanted to say thank you guys very much for listening to this. I'm not much of a narrator or much of a reader. It's just not really one of my strong points. I prefer to make things up at the top of my head and paraphrase. So thank you for bearing with me with this description. If you guys ever want to share any of your encounters, I do them occasionally. You can email them to mattsquatchpresents@gmail.com. Or if you want, you could just open up the recorder app on your phone. iPhones and Androids just have a voice notes recorder, and you can just tell me your story and send me the video link or the sound link, and I can accompany it to pictures, and that way you can leave as much detail as you want about your name and the location, or as much as you want to leave out about your name and location. So if you want to do that, you can send me an audio file of your voice telling me your encounter, or you could type it up and send it to me. Like I said, we're not a big encounter show, but we do like to talk about them occasionally. So thank you very much. Please stay safe in the woods. And if you like what you see, give this video a thumbs up. And thanks, folks.